Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a unique approach. We're diving into a really personal story.
Yeah, a story about transformation. It's very raw, very honest, and honestly, it holds some profound insights, I think.
Totally. Insights into navigating challenges, building the life you actually want.
And our source today, it's a YouTube video called You Can Turn Your Life Around by someone known as Thewizardliz.
Right. It's not super polished, but it feels incredibly authentic. It definitely sparks some interesting questions for us.
And hopefully for you listening, too. Our mission really is to unpack the core wisdom here.
Yeah, how changing your perspective, your mindset, can unlock so much potential, even when you feel completely stuck.
What's amazing is how her specific lived experience offers these universal truths about resilience, about self-belief. It sort of gives a path for anyone feeling trapped.
Okay, so let's get into it. Imagine this. You hear a song, right? A song that takes you straight back to your absolute darkest days.
Oh, wow.
But instead of just sadness, you suddenly realize, bam, just how incredibly far you've actually come.
That's powerful.
That's exactly where she starts her story. She calls it this aha moment, an old song she listened to when she was severely depressed. It brought the memories back, but the feeling was different. She said, I just realized how far I've come, and it was not until this moment that I actually realized this.
Which immediately makes you wonder, why don't we see our own progress sometimes? Why is it so hard?
Right. It's like we're blind to it.
Well, this ties directly into what she calls survival mode. And this isn't always about huge, obvious trauma.
Okay.
Lots of people operate in this mode without realizing it. If you grew up in, say, an abusive or toxic household, like she mentions, your whole focus narrows down to just basic stability. Safety, security. You're not really logging achievements because in your head, it's just, okay, I need to be stable. That's the goal.
Ah, so it's like an invisible accomplishment then.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing things just to stay level, but it doesn't feel like an accomplishment.
Precisely. And she talks about this herself, even with, fame, huge subscriber count. She said, it was never good enough.
Wow. Still. Even with that external success.
Yeah, she still saw herself as just a regular, normal person. People would tell her, you saved my life, you changed my life.
And how did she react?
She'd just think, oh, okay. It didn't land. It didn't register as something she had achieved personally.
How does that even happen? Where does that disconnect come from?
It often goes way back. She explains, when you grew up in a childhood where you were never applauded for any of your accomplishments, you become that kind of person for yourself. That lack of external validation. It gets inside. It becomes your own inner voice.
But that voice just kept pushing her.
Exactly. An internal voice saying, Liz, you can do more. Liz, you can do more. It's just relentless, always moving the goalposts, never acknowledging the milestones.
It makes you think, doesn't it? If you weren't seen or recognized for what you did, maybe you internalize that nothing's ever enough.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so what does this mean for, for us, for anyone listening? She points out something really important.
What's that?
She says, look, for many people, just getting out of bed is a big accomplishment these days. Seriously.
That's true. It really can be.
And she emphasizes the fact that we're still standing, we're still going, and we're still trying to create that best life for ourselves is a huge accomplishment. Full stop.
So the big question becomes, how do we actually recognize that progress? Especially the small steps, especially if we're wired to overlook them.
That's the challenge, moving from just surviving to actually acknowledging the steps taken.
And she definitely made that shift. She talks about the tangible changes, the big external stuff.
Yeah, like moving to a different country, getting her own apartment, making more money than I could ever imagine.
I mean, that's dramatic change, undeniable. But what was going on underneath all that?
Well, what's really interesting is how she links those big shifts to a bigger picture she couldn't see at first.
What do you mean?
She talks about praying for, such small things. Specific kind of stupid jobs, as she puts it.
Okay.
But those doors kept closing. And those closed doors actually guided her towards this path she couldn't have conceived of back then.
Right.
She says, when you are in a negative and toxic environment, you think that your life is really limited, like being stuck in a tiny room.
You can't imagine the world outside. So those closed doors weren't failure.
Not at all. They were redirections, pushing her toward something way bigger than her limited view allowed at the time.
That really resonates. How our environment can literally shrink what we think is possible.
Yeah.
And another thing that really jumped out was her point about breaking family patterns.
Oh, yeah. That was powerful.
She just states it so clearly. You can look at your family, you can look at your situation, and you can tell yourself, it does not have to be this way. I do not have to go through what my mom went through. I do not have to have the same life as my siblings. That's more than just a thought, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a declaration of agency of choice. She really stresses you're not a done deal. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can turn your life actually around. That just flies in the face of the idea that our past locks us in.
It's saying you have the power right now to change the script. You can be the one to break the cycle.
You really can. And she even reframes the pain itself.
How so?
She says, as much as I hated going through what I went through, if I did not experience those things, I would not be where I am today. Because her whole career is built on that experience.
Wow. So the struggles became like her unique qualification, her teachers.
Exactly. Not just things to endure, but actual lessons and stepping stones. Transforming that pain into wisdom, into something that helps others.
That idea, pain is a stepping stone. It leads right into her turning point, doesn't it? Hitting rock bottom.
Yeah, she describes hitting rock bottom so hard, reaching a point where she did not care anymore. Just done.
And that absolute low point became the catalyst.
It seems so. It forged this clear decision. I'm just going to try to do whatever I can to make myself a better person, to make myself healthier mentally from the inside out.
It sounds like desperation turning into determination.
It really does. And from that absolute low, she started taking these small, practical steps, like really practical.
Like what?
Literally going from never leaving my room to actually going for walks. Simple, but huge.
Okay.
From watching stupid videos to actually watching things that educated me. From never working out to doing like 10 minutes or 20-minute workouts in my room.
Wow, tiny shifts.
Tiny, consistent shifts. And also moving from having an eating disorder to actually thinking about what I put in my body, being mindful about it.
So it wasn't about massive leaps, but these foundational changes.
Exactly, building blocks. But it wasn't just physical stuff, right? There was a huge internal shift, too.
Around validation.
Yeah, realizing that we will never be good enough for anyone, especially if you're a woman. That external validation is a losing game.
So what's the alternative?
Internal reinforcement, she says. You have to have that mentality to yourself where you constantly reinforce to yourself that you are good enough. You have to be your own cheerleader.
Generate your own applause. That's powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. And it ties into how she talks about self-talk, the conscious mind.
How does that work?
She explains your mind doesn't know anyone else. It only knows you. So when you talk negatively, even about others, your mind applies it to you.
Whoa. So you have to be careful.
Very careful. Careful with what you speak into existence, she says. Careful about who you allow in your life and what kind of energies you allow. You're literally programming yourself constantly.
Right. And this builds that sense of being almost unstoppable.
She says, if you want it bad enough, it will happen. There is no stopping someone with that mindset.
Which she contrasts with, what was it? Most people don't even reach 20% of their potential.
Yeah. It's that unwavering belief, that internal alignment that really fuels the external action.
And where did that core determination really come from for her? It seemed rooted in fear.
It's a specific fear, yeah. Her worst fear, she says, was being old and looking back and regretting my life and thinking that I lived a life for someone else.
That's a heavy fear.
It is. And it became this non-negotiable point for her, a refusal to live like this, a catalyst.
And that connects to what you said earlier about freedom.
Absolutely. She says the only thing I've ever craved in my life was freedom, because that's the only thing I did not have ever.
And that wasn't just given to her.
No, she achieved it. By breaking those cycles, by refusing limitations, and crucially, by taking responsibility. It's the freedom born from inner liberation.
Which led to that amazing declaration she made to herself.
Right. I said, Liz, you're not going to be a victim. You're going to be. You're going to be a warrior, and I am a warrior.
That's not just positive thinking. That's like a fundamental shift in identity.
It totally is. A self-anointing. And that, she says, was the moment things really took off.
When the change accelerated.
Yeah. It came very fast. Once I was like, I'm done. I'm going to actually take responsibility for my life. Because it's all my fault and nobody else. I'm done playing the victim.
Wow.
That's when it came so fast and everything I wanted came, and then 10x more. It highlights accountability as the key, the accelerator. Stop blaming, start owning.
That's when the momentum builds. And she finishes with such an encouraging thought, doesn't she?
Really encouraging. Basically, you don't have to have it figured out. You don't need the whole map.
Just consistency.
Exactly. If you have some consistency in what you're doing, how you are showing up for yourself, then you will see like a clear picture of where you're going. Trust the process.
It's a reassurance almost that everything will fall into place if you just keep taking those steps.
Mm-hmm. One foot in front of the other.
So wrapping this up, this whole deep dive, this journey she shared, it really shows you're never a done deal. Not really.
Not at all.
Yep.
The power to rewrite your story, it's right there inside you, no matter where you started or what you've been through.
It's about making that conscious shift, maybe, from just survival mode to actually thriving mode.
Yeah, and that starts with recognizing the small wins, redefining what freedom means. Maybe it's internal first, and adopting that kind of warrior mindset she talks about.
And seeing struggles not just as pain, but as potential lessons, potential stepping stones.
Exactly. Recontextualizing the hard stuff.
Yeah.
It can become your greatest strength.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, something to chew on. As you reflect on all this, think about this. What's one seemingly small, consistent action you could commit to?
Mm-hmm.
Something that maybe looking back later you'll realize was actually a huge turning point, a turning point you didn't even see coming at the time.
That's a great question to sit with.
That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.